Millions of euros in deals, transfer fees breaking records one after another, and clubs dreaming of a brighter future. In the world of football, a transfer isn't just about a player changing shirts. It means new hope, excitement, and a fresh beginning. But not every beginning continues the way fans expect. There are some transfers where expectations shoot to the sky the moment the ink dries on the contract, only to come crashing down soon after. Today, we're not talking about untalented players. On the contrary, these were footballers who carried enormous potential, yet crumbled under the weight of expectations. We're looking at some of the most disappointing transfers in football history. So grab your cold drink, sit back, because this is where our story begins. Expected to leave his mark on the football stage, Paul Pogba stands out as one of the biggest examples of wasted potential. In the summer of 2016, at just 23 years old, he moved from Juventus to Manchester United for a record fee of 105 million euros. At the time, this was the highest transfer fee ever paid for a footballer, and everyone believed he would change the club's destiny. His height, physique, athleticism, all were top class. A towering 1.90-meter midfielder, yet also a nightmare for defenders with his technical ability, pinpoint long passes, and threat from distance. But at Juventus, with Pirlo behind him, Vidal and Marchisio alongside, and defensive walls like Bonucci and Chiellini protecting the back, Pogba could shine without having to shoulder leadership responsibilities. Upon his return to England, the picture was completely different. He was no longer just a talented piece of the puzzle, he was expected to be the main figure. However, Pogba preferred basking in the spotlight to carrying the weight of the game. He made headlines more for his social media posts than for his performances on the pitch. His form was inconsistent, at times invisible. His physical condition declined, and injuries took their toll. On top of that, his clashes with Jose Mourinho made as many headlines as his goals. And in the summer of 2022, just like when he arrived, Pogba left United without bringing a single euro back into the club's coffers. There are some transfers where you know from the very moment the deal is signed, this won't work. Jack Grealish's Manchester City story is exactly one of those. Having come through the Aston Villa Academy, Grealish steadily climbed the ranks during his 8 years with the senior team. He first cemented his place in the starting 11, then took the captain's armband, and eventually earned a spot in the England national team. By 2020, he was one of the most creative English players in the Premier League. Chance creation, breaking through defenses, drawing fouls, he ranked among the very best in all of these categories. But here's where the turning point in his story came. At Villa, everything ran through him. He was the one receiving the ball. He was the one making the decisions. In such a role, it's almost inevitable for certain stats to shine. And it wasn't just his football that drew attention. The low socks, the slicked back hair, the swagger on the pitch. He was billed as the most stylish English player since David Beckham. In the summer of 2021, Manchester City was seduced by that image and talent, paying 117 million euros to make him the most expensive English player in history. But the freedom he had at Villa was impossible to replicate under Pep Guardiola's disciplined and meticulous system. Unable to get as many touches as he liked, Grealish gradually lost his confidence and turned into a safe, unadventurous winger. His minutes decreased, and his time on the bench increased. Last season, he finished the Premier League campaign with just 1 goal and 1 assist. He couldn't even secure a place in the World Cup squad. On top of his record transfer fee, his annual salary of over £15 million and rumors about drinking habits only added to the pressure. Today, he has become an investment that Manchester City is struggling to offload. When it comes to flop transfers, Manchester United has been topping the lists in recent years, and one of the most notable names on that list is undoubtedly Antony. Erik ten Hag was determined to bring his former student from Ajax, but one of United's biggest mistakes at the negotiating table was inflating the price themselves. There's a simple rule in the football market. If the buyer is a club with a reputation for overpaying, like Manchester United or Chelsea, the price automatically goes up. And if the seller happens to be Ajax, a club famous for polishing young talents and selling them for astronomical fees, negotiations always start high. If the player has already represented the Brazil national team, the price skyrockets even further. With all these factors combined, United ended up paying €95 million for a winger who had yet to truly prove himself. From day one, it was clear this price tag didn't make sense, and Antony's problems on the pitch went far beyond the pressure of that fee. The Brazilian attributed his dip in form to chaos in his personal life. In interviews, he openly admitted that family issues and personal problems had harmed his football. He confessed that mental struggles made it hard for him to stay focused, and at times, he completely drifted out of games because of it. So, delivering value for that €95 million still feels like a distant possibility. Looking at Manchester United's transfer history over the last decade, you can find dozens of names worthy of the flop label league market. The club that wanted him the most was Manchester United. When the deal was finally done for €85 million, everyone expected him to take English football by storm. But the spark he had in the Bundesliga quickly faded upon his return to England. To make matters worse, tensions with manager Erik ten Hag pushed things to breaking point. The Dutch coach publicly questioned Sancho's commitment in training. Sancho hit back on social media, claiming he was being scapegoated and openly challenging his manager. The feud ended with Sancho being exiled from the squad. Whether Ten Hag was right or wrong is debatable, but completely devaluing an €85 million player was a serious management failure on both the coaching and executive levels. As a last resort, he was loaned to Chelsea with a €30 million buy option. Yet he failed to impress there too, and the option went unused. 3 years on, Sancho has shown neither growth nor consistency. Today, he remains an €85 million problem that United still doesn't know how to solve. Those who watched him during his Lyon days will remember exactly why Tanguy Ndombele was so highly talked about. With his dribbling ability, explosive dynamism, and knack for breaking through opposition pressure in a single move, he was one of Europe's most exciting young midfielders. This potential pushed Tottenham into action in the summer of 2019. For €62 million, he became the most expensive signing in the club's history. In North London, everyone expected a new midfield leader to emerge. But the relentless pace and physicality of the Premier League proved a size too big for Ndombele. From the very start, he struggled with injuries. The words of then-manager Jose Mourinho still echo. "Every time I see him, he's injured." Of course, getting injured isn't always the player's fault, but as the years went by, it became clear that Ndombele wasn't looking after his body or his discipline. Tottenham's record signing turned into a headache within just 3 years. Not only did he fail to adapt to the Premier League, but he also fell short during loan spells in Serie A and even in Turkey. His excess weight was constantly in the headlines, a sign that mentally he was drifting away from the game. Eventually, what was once considered a major investment for the club ended in the summer of 2024, for free. Just 4 months after the Wesley Fofana transfer, Chelsea moved again in the winter of 2023, this time for Mykhailo Mudryk. But this story stands as a textbook example of why you should be cautious with players who are hyped too quickly. The Ukrainian winger hadn't even had an outstanding season with Shakhtar Donetsk. In fact, his stats were fairly average. But a few eye-catching performances in the Champions League sent shockwaves through the football world. At the time, Arsenal had made signing Mudryk one of their top priorities. The player himself was almost campaigning for the move, posting Arsenal-themed images and expressing his desire on social media nearly every day. But then, Chelsea's new ownership stepped in with their aggressive approach to the transfer market, and the situation took a dramatic turn. Shakhtar put the two clubs head-to-head, and in the end, Chelsea won the race, paying €70 million plus bonuses. Expectations were huge, but once Mudryk took to the pitch, he didn't look anywhere near a player worth that fee. And then, in November 2024, routine testing revealed he had used a banned substance. Since that day, he hasn't just missed matches, he hasn't even trained with the team. With a contract running until 2031, the 23-year-old is now facing the possibility of a 4-year ban. This investment is already on its way to becoming one of the most unfortunate transfers in Chelsea's history. Just as Real Madrid rarely make mistakes in the transfer market, Liverpool, especially during Jurgen Klopp's tenure, has been known for its pinpoint signings. A master at finding energetic and hard-working players suited to his gegenpressing system, the club often dealt with teams like RB Leipzig and Salzburg, who share the same pressing philosophy. But the signing of Naby Keita turned out to be one of the biggest disappointments in that partnership. In the summer of 2018, the Guinean midfielder arrived for €60 million, billed as a quick, energetic, relentless pressing machine. Yet from the day he set foot in the Premier League, injuries became his constant shadow. You know the saying, there's not a single part of him that hasn't been injured. Keita was the living embodiment of it. Liverpool fans even turned his injury record into running jokes on social media. Lists of his most bizarre injuries started circulating. Injuring his big toe after tripping over the turf, straining his neck because of the airplane's air conditioning, and missing 18 games after falling during warm-ups before a match. Wearing the red shirt, he suffered injuries to 13 different body parts, a total of 22 separate incidents, missing 113 games in the process. Even when he was fit, his match sharpness was always in doubt. When his contract expired in 2023, he left for Werder Bremen on a free transfer. But the story didn't change. He only managed 5 appearances there. Now, at 30 years old, Keita's career seems to be heading towards its final chapters. A bad footballer? Absolutely not. But he's one of the clearest examples of a transfer made at the wrong time, for the wrong price. This move happened during the brief absence of Michael Edwards, the mastermind behind Liverpool's data-driven transfer strategy. Sometimes, the true value of such figures is only realized through the mistakes made in their absence. In his final season at Benfica, Núñez exploded onto the scene. Goals, distance covered, pace, everything about his game looked impressive. But Liverpool, basing their decision on that single breakout season, moved a little too hastily and paid far more than they should have. The fee could rise to €100 million with bonuses. When you join for that kind of money, the expectation is clear: 30 goals or more every season. Over his 2 years with Klopp, Núñez wasn't bad, but he never reached that level. And with Arne Slot's arrival, he seemed to fade from view entirely. The weight of the price tag slowly eroded his confidence. Missed sitters and costly turnovers began to take a toll on him mentally. The Dutch coach didn't hold back his criticism. "If there's one thing I cannot accept, it's my player not giving enough effort." Darwin Núñez has signed a 3-year contract with Al Hilal. Neither Liverpool could truly capitalize on his full potential, nor could Núñez deliver the pure goal-scoring thrill he promised when he first burst onto the scene. A legend at Chelsea. On one hand, a player who had tormented Premier League defenders for years and lifted trophies along the way. On the other, the most successful club in history, Real Madrid. If there was anyone in the world who could fill the void left by Ronaldo, it was Eden Hazard. In 2014-2015, as Mourinho's Chelsea dominated the league, Hazard recorded 14 goals and 9 assists, earning the title of Premier League Player of the Season. His pace, agility, ball control. Everyone who watched him said the same thing: the Maradona of modern football. In the summer of 2019, at the very peak of his career, he fulfilled his childhood dream and headed to the Santiago Bernabeu. The streets of Madrid echoed with his name. Fans believed a new era was about to begin. But this story would be remembered not for trophies, but for injuries. That smile on presentation day, the excitement in his first match. It all faded too quickly. Hazard arrived overweight. His fitness was lacking. Then came the string of injuries. Each time he returned, the fans dared to believe again. Each time they said, "This time it will be different." But each time, the same heartbreak. In the 4 seasons before Madrid, the Belgian had scored 60 goals. At Real, across 4 years, he managed just 7 goals. And the football world agreed on one thing. Madrid fans weren't upset about the money spent. They were upset because they never truly got to watch him play. Because this was the story of a legend meant to write his destiny on the pitch, slowly fading away in the treatment room. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe. I'm looking forward to your comments for future video ideas.